true. Let's move on to the next match of the day after that grueling one for the mid-match. We're going up to match number 4, which is going to be Shaxy versus BloodTrail. And again, BloodTrail... basically a similar position, if not slightly worse before that match of Patra, but in Division A, just looking pretty horrible in terms of his score, to be completely honest. I can't really just make things up about scores. It's just true. So he is almost certainly guaranteed for relegation, but I think if he, again, just takes a loss here, then it's just
it is 100%.
Nail in the coffin. He is done.
It is the first absolute 100%. He has no chance to not be relegated if he loses this. Because, again, for Patra, she had for the whole time BloodTrail right there next to her, down at the bottom. BloodTrail, since like week 4 or 5, hasn't really had that because Samuel Sao has just been slowly climbing his way back up the win percentages with a couple of good weeks of play.
Yeah, it's been less close, and I think BloodTrail... I don't know. I feel like he stuck out as one of the players just who hasn't really stuck out, if that makes like any form of reasonable sentence at all. But he just hasn't really done too much as far as I'm concerned. There's no overly, I would say, inspired lineup or deck choices. He's just bringing generally the good stuff, which is a fine strategy if you win with it. But if you bring generally the good stuff, yes, there's a chance that just the way variance works in games like Hearthstone, that you will just, sometimes you're in a tournament and you lose. Like, that's just the game. But I feel like if that's happening, then it's on the player to do something different, right? You can't just be like, oh, well, I lost this week, hey-ho. Oh, well, I lost next week. Oh, well, that's just the way it is. Like, I'm sure, even though it might be a tiny bit, you can do something. And I'm not saying BloodTrail hasn't. It's not like, we chat every day, unfortunately. But I think at least if you just go base level in terms of lineup and decks submitted, that across all the weeks of Grandmasters, there's something he could have done a little bit extra.
I think so too, especially as, like you said, he hasn't really stood out all too much for himself in Grandmasters so far. And when he has, unfortunately, it's been through pretty big blunders. We have seen from him a few instances where in Hearthstone, often you only have to make one mistake to throw away the game. And I think BloodTrail has done that a couple of times. I think quite a lot with this Holy Wrath Paladin play in particular, that for me has been very lacking a lot of the time. But BloodTrail is such an anomaly to me as a player because the first time I really saw him play was during the Summer Championships last year, where he played, in my opinion, the poorest out of all the players, the 16 represented there. But he then went on to have an amazing year in HCT and played really well. He absolutely turned things around. But now back in Grandmasters, it feels like he's back down again. I don't know if he was practicing more in that point with his good run through HCT, qualifying through to the World Championships, or the new format just isn't working. Whatever it is, something's just not clicking for him.
Yep, and again, having to go up against Shaxy in some must-win games of Hearthstone, I wouldn't want to do it because Shaxy, although his score might not reflect it, 6-4 is a very good score, especially in the group where most people are around that score anyway. He isn't in the negative results. And 6-4 is good, but Shaxy could easily be, say, Chonsu's spot in this season, and I wouldn't be that surprised. I wouldn't be like, oh my god, Shaxy's doing well. It's like, well, he did very well last season too. He's just a good Hearthstone player, and he wins games of Hearthstone that you could argue he shouldn't, which is what makes him, I think, dangerous.
Speaking of winning games of Hearthstone that you shouldn't, he may be about to do exactly that. This Druid starting hand is, outside of a Wrath, the absolute dream, I think. Like, having War Druid Loti is huge, curving into Oasis Surger is huge. I really don't mind Shaxy's chances at all this game.
Yeah, I guess, again, like, if you had to pick, but I guess you would have too many cards then for the turn. It's like an Innovate would be nice as well, just so he could have gone 2-drop Innovate and then draw into something like a Starfall later. But yes, his hand is magnifique.
It's going to be really close though now.
It always is versus Priest.
Does Shaxy divert from completing the quest for a turn to play War Druid Loti? Because, of course, if he expects Amit to come down on the following turn, or even just a big minion to be generated, he would be very happy that he did that. To go in Poisonous Stealth form, of course. But that means he's not playing Oasis Surger on curve, which is so detrimental to your game.
Yeah. And I even like just not playing the minion either. You know, yes, card draw is nice, but as you mentioned, Shaxy has the goods. He just needs the time to play them out. So, and this is why, again, you didn't see a swing face there, because a swing face with the hero power would have, you could argue, not changed much. It could, in some instances, give a target for BloodTrail to heal to buff a Light Warden.
That's it.
But most importantly, 1 damage to face on turn 3 is not changing the outcome of this game in a positive manner for Shaxy.
Right, it's effectively 0% you're gaining there in terms of the average. Any scenario that can
And you could lose percent by doing it. Even if it's 0.1% versus 0%.
It's just correct, yeah. But on the other side, BloodTrail really just waiting for anything to die. It was so that he can resurrect it with Psycho Pump.
Psycho Pumps are like, we've been on our break for like an hour now, and we've not been needed yet. What's going on?
Can just someone hurry up and pop their clogs, alright? It's not going to pump itself, alright? What actually does that mean? Quiet, alright?
Oh, I thought you were actually asking me what Psycho Pump was.
No, it's still in my little
It's a real thing.
Made-up world. What is it?
I want to say it's either like ancient Egyptian or ancient Greek, of like I think like a spiritual guide. I think is what. Oh, I guess it's Egyptian based on the.
Yes. Yeah.
That makes sense. But I think it's like a spiritual guide. Is basically what it is.
Interesting. I've never heard of that
which
before.
Does make sense because it reses a dead minion.
Yeah.
You know, so. But yeah, it wasn't just like. Why did Blizzard just? Did they just pick Psycho Pump? Because the card's so good, you'd have to be a psycho to make it. And Pump because it's a funny word. I don't know. You know,
it was one of the weirdest named cards. But for BloodTrail here, speaking of the Psycho Pump, in this instance, it's done the job. This was the avenue back into the game, I think, quite clearly for BloodTrail.
But what's scary is there's still game for Shaxy.
There's still a lot of game for Shaxy. I don't believe there's any way for him to actually kill off both Amets on this turn, given that the taunt is always in the way, which is really, really pesky, actually. But you've got to try, right? Like, you take out the first half, leave one at 1 health, and then if they don't have a big heal, it's a detriment to most of their other minions.
What about... Are you ready for a crazy turn?
Don't say Nourish.
Trade...
I wonder.
And then just go Hidden Oasis taunt.
What do you heal there yourself? Probably the minion, right?
I wouldn't be too upset with either.
Yeah.
A 6/6, the Oasis Surge is still alive, and a 3/5 taunt.
I think leaving a 7 health Amet is just a recipe for disaster. I think that's how you maybe lose this game.
Okay. I just like experimenting.
Oh, big time.
Players.
Yeah.
Because then there'd still be Starfall available for
I'm
extra
open
burst
to anything.
damage, but
yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, this is just the level 1 play. This is just like, so what's not going to get me killed next turn? Let's do that.
So what's the what's the level 1 play on BloodTrail's side? Does he just heal and
Psycho Pump and Amet. Again.
I like the sound of that. If you have 2 Amets on board, it's the second one played that
you know what?
has the effect.
I'm ashamed to say I don't know, because I've never done it before in a game that I've played, at least. I don't think I've seen it in GM.
I'm pretty sure that's how it works. I've seen it before, and I think, yeah, if the second one played is the effective
Priority.
one. Yeah.
So it's the freshest Amet.
Exactly.
People only copy the freshest Amet.
God, I would watch that TV show.
Yeah, the follow-up doesn't feel great here, does it? What about Nourish?
Now, yeah, I mean,
you want to Nourish this bot?
now I like Nourish. You'll possibly just lose the game if you go for it.
You get Thingy as well, though, right?
You get Ferocious out. Yeah, okay, yeah. He deviates. He wants to just lock down the board first. Does mean Cenarius isn't playable next turn, though?
Yeah, that's what really made me want to see a Nourish there, because it would unlock not only Ferocious Howl to gain a lot of armor and draw another card, but also Cenarius. And I honestly feel like, although you said lock down the board, I also feel like it doesn't lock down the board that well.
Yeah.
Obviously BloodTrail's had a good turn.
Yeah.
But I just think that, yeah, you've healed, but health often doesn't do that much in priest matchups, whereas the 6/6 taunt does some good work. Now we're going to see the nourish, and let's see what the pickup is. Same turn as last turn.
Pretty bad, yeah.
It's
actually very bad.
He could play the Crystal Merchant if he really wanted to, but I think the immediate armor's just better, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Like, you want to play that at some point, and I think it's very reasonable to assume later, in the next 2 or 3 turns, you won't have the mana. So gain the armor now.
Pick up.
Yeah.
Whoa! It's not enough, but still. Derek entered the realm of true top-tier casting. Just make noises.
Ooga juggo. I mean, you probably just buff it up with another Divine Spirit and then don't Topsy, because
and just trade.
Sure. Yeah. You trade.
Trade the big boy.
Yeah. Because you've seen one. I wonder. You've seen Loti, right? They have to have discover another Loti to kill this off this turn.
I think this is correct. But now Shaxy can maybe not do it right now, but potentially, because of the lack of cards for BloodTrail, play the isolation game. If he can't kill the big Blade Master, he can leave it on its own, and it has to punch through multiple taunts over the course of multiple turns, which, if it was me, is what I would aim for as a direct sort of answer to what I'm seeing, until Zephyrus becomes live, of course, because Zephyrus will just snipe whatever you need.
I love this play on this
turn.
Though. I think this is absolutely the way to go.
I love just the 5/5 sits down. Is like, look at me for a second, and there's everyone else.
Am I not cool?
The poison,
the silence. That was the perfect 4-drop to get, though.
That was insane. I mean, if he has to silence that, though. Oh, okay. I guess that was just enough. Shaxy takes the game.
There we go.
I didn't even get to fully analyze the turn.
Bagoo, BloodTrail.
I'm annoyed.
Well, me too. But I guess, although we haven't seen it from most players, BloodTrail, they're just realizing there's not really much of an avenue back into the game. And to be perfectly honest, for BloodTrail, I think at this point, he's probably a bit tilted. Like, having to head into a game that he knows is, if not meaningless for him, I don't know, it's difficult, right? Because if there's any chance at all that he can win, you absolutely should take that to try and have a chance of not being relegated. I wonder if he's done the maths, though, in terms of tiebreakers and figured out even if he ties with Samuel Sao, he still can't win.
I will say, bear in mind that the players do get money for winning matches of Hearthstone.
Good point, yeah.
Which means that, say BloodTrail's guaranteed out, if he wins his next 3 matches, he gets a significant chunk of money for winning those. So at least I would play it. But I think there the main thing was he couldn't deal with the board, and the board could deal with him, so the game ends anyway, or just kill him anyway through lethal. So if I concede, I actually just wanted to look at the board more because it was kind of cool minions. But we are done for that game. We are going to be moving on to game number 2 between Shaxy and BloodTrail. But before we do, we're going to go to a quick break. We'll be right back.
What's up, Hearthstone fans? Welcome back to another episode of The Curve, where we draw the biggest headlines from this past weekend on Curve. I'm your host, Simon Sottle-Welch. Let's do this. After the format change to the second season of Grandmasters, the playoffs now allow for the top 4 players from each division to advance to the final stage of the season. With this additional spot available, players can clinch spots earlier in the season. Chionsu in the Asia-Pacific region is 9-1 in Division A. His continued stellar play locked him in as the first player to clinch playoffs in all of the regions. In Division B, we'll have to wait another week to see the playoff pictures settle down, as all of the players are very close in the standings. Reigning world champion Hunter Ace was the second player to qualify for playoffs this weekend, as he won both of his matches, again. The champ is truly firing on all cylinders and is looking like the favourite to claim the last European spot going to BlizzCon later this year. In the division over, Psycho, who led the last season in match score, continues to struggle. He's dropped his last 8 matches in a row and is currently sitting in last place. In the Americas region, none of the players have officially qualified for playoffs just yet. Just Saiyan was close this weekend, but lost to Amnesiac on Sunday night. In both divisions, the competition is getting stronger. Amnesiac in particular, who started the season 1 and 4, has won his last 5 matches and was even able to beat the #1 player in his division. The region as a whole is going to have some very decisive results this coming weekend, and every game matters because of tiebreakers, so be ready for some intense matches. With the season closing, there is also the flip side of the tournament, where the last place players will be getting relegated from Grandmasters. Every player is fighting for their tournament lives, so keep an eye out for ETC, Race, Psycho, Viper, BloodTrail, and Patra, as many of them are in must-win situations to keep themselves from getting relegated. In this week's meta moment, we want to highlight Highlander decks. The current Highlander decks that were brought this weekend are Warrior, Mage, and Hunter. The key component of these decks is that they only have one of any individual card. Key cards in these decks usually consist of things like Zephyrus the Great, Tiamat, and class-specific cards such as this expansion's versions of Elise, Reno, or Bran. Each deck is powerful in their own ways, and if you haven't tried them, take a look at Firebat's VODs and deck lists from this past week to see 2 different Highlander decks in action. If you missed any of the Grandmasters action, you can check out the VODs on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Hearthstone Esports. Grandmasters resumes this weekend. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's it for us. We'll see you in the tavern.
We're back with Shaxy versus BloodTrail, and Shaxy really just going 1-0 up now and fighting for just kind of the middle to top brawl in his division, just being able to try and secure top 4 because it really is all up for grabs in that one.
It is indeed, and with Shaxy having first seed last season in Hearthstone Grandmasters, I think it's reasonable for him to expect, even if he can't get first seed with Chonsu so far ahead, qualification for top 4, 100%. Yeah. He should be very devastated if he doesn't get that, considering not only has he brought very creative decks compared to most of the other Asia-Pacific players throughout this season, he's also been playing them really well, in my opinion. Just one of the most kind of just nose to the grindstone, nothing too flashy, very strong Hearthstone players.
Yeah, like I said, the thing that stands out for me about Shaxy, he just wins very weird games of Hearthstone more often than other players do not. So let's go into it though. Could be the last game of the series and make Shaxy in a 7-4 score, or BloodTrail can try and finish the season with a bit more of a respectable score and a bit more cash in his pocket if he decides to or manages to take this series. Priest Mirror, what we all know and love, Derek.
Oh yes, and already Shaxy, I love it. Holding on to the inner fire, this is something I will preach about until people get ruddy bored of me.
Until the cows come home.
Exactly.
And, I want to look up
where the
origin of that phrase, because I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess it's farming related, but I just don't understand why cows would be anywhere but home. What have they got to do on weekends? They're not going out, are they?
Yeah. Until the fat lady sings as well. That doesn't make any sense either. Opera.
I always presumed that was an opera thing of... Did it always finish with a lady singing?
I think that's kind of all the way throughout. It'd be a bit boring if you go to an opera and then no one sings until it's over. Like, oh, brilliant. Coming to an end then, I see.
I don't know. Interesting.
Either way, as the vast majority of important decisions have already passed us by, the point I was trying to make here is that I think holding on to Inner Fire is fantastic in the Priest mirror because you can so easily end up giving yourself very strong value trades as Shaxy, if he hadn't found the Inner Fire, sorry, the extra arms, would have done on turn 2.
Right.
Like, he would have given his minion +2/+2 effectively, which he does with extra arms anyway.
Yeah. Difference is, it's just going to be interesting if it's just heal trade. Ooh, it's going to Divine Spirit trade.
Yeah.
Well, this makes the minion even harder to deal with. I'm just going to give a quick checkaroo on my notes. Wait, my notes have disappeared. One second.
I really like this from Shaxy, though, of going for the buff here, because it means he has a low health minion. Even so, the only thing he's vulnerable to is silence, because in every other instance, he is able to just heal back up with the Nefeset Ritualist after taking a value trade. He's golden.
Funnily enough, BloodTrail actually running double silence and not sacrificing one Sandy. He actually runs 1 Pyro and 1 Acolyte to make room, dropping a Pyro. So that, honestly, if you're going to cut something for an extra silence, I don't think it's one Sandy. I think it would be more like I could get on board more with a Pyro. And I get why, because the mirror, you don't need one Sandy. But are you really going to make that hard of a cut just for one matchup?
Yeah, I've seen that before. I wonder if it was BloodTrail last week that I saw
It's probably
doing that, perhaps. Hunter is messing with his perfect baby of this combo priest.
But yeah, it's a cut I can definitely get way more behind than one Sandy being cut, because that blows my mind.
I still hate how much I was on the wrong side of history with one Samdi. I was there in the first stream where he was playing it, and I was like, what are you doing? Why are you playing this garbage 7-drop in our powerful deck? And now I look quite the fool.
Even more so than normal.
Yeah, I know. I've reached peak idiot.
I can teach you how to deal with that, don't I? I'm a bit of a specialist.
Don't want to brag, but I'm very dumb.
I'm a pretty big deal in the idiot space. Well, a lot of success.
Oh my god, this is disgusting. Look at this value trade.
It's the fact that it's literally one attack off. It doesn't even need a heal, and then the Nefeset's going to follow up.
God, this just feels amazing. I've never felt so alive, Raven. Jeez. Look at this! It's insane! I'm losing my mind.
Why has Mr. Blizzard allowed this to happen? This turn is filthy.
I agree. Why is this allowed?
And the solo Pyro's like, look, I said I could do 2 people's jobs, which is fine. I'm covering for my mate, other Pyromancer. I can't do like the whole deck's job on my own. Come on.
Oh my god. Yeah. I mean, this was just
done
nothing.
And dusted. BloodTrail taking a loss, but Shaxy getting the win. And that is going to put him again just in the with everyone's scores so close. Just getting wins like that puts you in the catch-up section, right? Everyone's trying to catch up to you, and you're leading as opposed to being just a win behind, two wins section. Behind. Yeah, hey, okay, that's pretty funny. Yes, so Shaxy looking pretty good in his group, like you said, may well not be catching up to Chansu anytime soon. Not that anyone is, but still, just getting those wins means. As we've maybe not mentioned today, but top 4 for the qualification to playoffs. 4th place actually has a disadvantage going into playoffs. So you really want top 3. You prefer top 1 as that gets an advantage, but really you just don't want 4th if you can guarantee getting into playoffs. There's multiple tiers. It's like an emotional roller coaster, basically, of how it like going through GM. But yeah, if you can avoid it, you want 3rd to 1st because I think having a disadvantage feels worse than having the advantage, right?
It feels worse than the advantage feels good.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that's fair.
Well, like, I guess
it feels very bad. With
the disadvantage, you can only lose once. Yeah. With the advantage, you can still lose once and still be in the tournament.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas you can't do that with the 4th place, so it gets harder. But anyway, after our terrible conversation that explained, not really in any good fashion, what is going on, we're going to move on to the next series of the day.